Welcome to our real-world battery drain test between the iPhone 15 Pro Max and the S24 Ultra. And this video is going to be a bit different. We're going to travel to Liverpool for a one-day trip, and I'm going to do the exact same things on both phones at the same time to see which one is going to last me the longest. We're starting our journey at 9:45 a.m. with 100% battery life on both. They're also on the exact same cellular network, E in this case, and I even have the exact same data plan on both. Right, so let's get an Uber and go to the train station. Now, to avoid calling two Ubers, I've called it on my iPhone first, after which the Samsung immediately displayed the same thing, with location services being in use on both. So I got into my Uber and we were heading to Manchester Piccadilly station, where our train to Liverpool would leave from. Okay, so we're just in the Uber now, on the way to the train station. And here's something quite interesting. So the iPhone's battery is still 100%, but the Samsung has dropped to 96%. At this point, I wasn't really doing much on my phones. I was just enjoying the ride and keeping an eye on how long we had left through the Uber app. The Uber trip took less than 20 minutes. So at just about 20 minutes past 10, we arrived at Manchester Piccadilly train station. And just after this 20-minute ride, the batteries had dropped to 99% on the iPhone and 94% on the Samsung. Right, so we just got to the train station now, and the train to Liverpool is leaving in about 20 minutes, 10:37, platform 14. So we made our way to the platform, only to find out that our train from 10:37 was delayed.
The train to Liverpool Lime Street has been delayed.
We didn't really know how long the delay would be for, so in the meantime, I looked over some of our upcoming social media posts for wallpapers, which wasn't easy as I was scrolling and trying to do the exact same gestures in Slack on both. However, after a roughly 20-minute delay, our train was finally pulling into the station. The train is now moving. And take a look at this. So the iPhone now dropped to 96%, and the S24 Ultra is now at 92%. Okay, so the whole trip is about 45 to 50 minutes. So I'm gonna watch an episode of Alexander, The Making of a God, which is a new TV show that just came out on Netflix. And I already got this downloaded on both, so that, connection is not an issue. Right, so let's give it a go. Oh, and obviously I wanna watch this with audio as well. So I actually brought pair of AirPods Pro and then also the Galaxy Buds Pro. I'm gonna put one in each ear so that everything is as fair as possible. And I gotta admit, syncing both phones up so that I didn't have any double audio from the earbuds definitely took more attempts than I was imagining, but I did manage to get there in the end. So I started watching the show and I noticed how different it looked on each phone. I've set both to the exact same brightness, which was set to manual, although throughout the movie, they each decided to brighten up some specific areas, resulting in one of the displays occasionally looking brighter than the other. Therefore, while I was watching this, I would often find myself adjusting the brightness to make sure that they were each as close as possible. The series did seem quite interesting. I might even consider continuing this at home. Samsung's lower display reflectivity was really nice to have on the train. And yes, I did have a screen protector on my iPhone, which did make it slightly worse. But where the iPhone shined was in terms of detail. Even though I had downloaded the Netflix show in high quality on both, the iPhone's download was far higher res than Samsung's, with the colors also being deeper. So I definitely preferred watching this show on the iPhone. Fast forward 50 minutes later and our train was pulling into Liverpool Lime Street Station, our final stop. And before we disembark the train, I want to show you our most delicious pack yet for wallpapers, which is Fruit Frenzy by Glen. We've got 10 amazing fruit flavors for you, like blueberry, apple, lime, orange, and so many others. And they look absolutely stunning in 8K, both on your smartphone as well as on your desktop. And you can get them in our app wallpapers. The links are in the description. Okay, so we just arrived in Liverpool, and after almost an hour of video playback, the iPhone is at 89%, while the Samsung is at 86%, so they are closer than ever. Okay, so we're just gonna go on a quick tour to explore Liverpool and visit some important landmarks. And I was gonna ask Galaxy AI on the Samsung, but of course we don't actually have Galaxy AI on the iPhone. So to keep things fair, we actually brought a second Galaxy S24 Ultra, and we're just gonna use this for Galaxy AI. And then of course, everything else that I do, I'm gonna do on both the Samsung, this one, and the iPhone at the same time. Right, so let's say you wanna plan a day trip to Liverpool in our case. The way you have to do it with Galaxy AI is you have to use Samsung's browser. Then in Google, you have to search for something like Liverpool Day Trip. And then if you press this button right here, it's going to give you a summary of all the headlines, and this is what we got. So we got a few attractions and everything that Galaxy AI is suggesting me to do in Liverpool. Okay, so Galaxy AI summary is saying that we should start our day by going to the iconic Royal Albert Docks. And on our way we were, trusting a mobile LLM that summarized a bunch of Google search headlines to hopefully give us an exciting day trip in Liverpool. Right, so we know where we want to be, Royal Albert Docks. But we don't really know how to get there, so I'm just going to use Google Maps on both, which should give us a pretty good idea. And just take a look at how much brighter the iPhone is. They're both maxed out, so the Samsung is also maxed out on manual brightness and extra brightness on. But yeah, the iPhone is quite a bit brighter. In fact, the iPhone was so bright that it was blowing out on our camera. Now, once I started the navigation, the Samsung was automatically giving me my orientation whenever I was rotating the phone, which for some reason the iPhone simply wasn't. However, Samsung's compass was very inaccurate, as that wasn't the way that I was facing. So because of this, we decided to follow the route that the iPhone suggested. At this point, right at the start of our journey, the iPhone was at 86%, while the Samsung was at 83%. During our walk, which was a fairly pleasant 20-minute or so journey, I also took a couple of photos along the way to capture the spirits of Liverpool. And I gotta say, in quite a few of these early shots, I did prefer Samsung's result. In this first example, Samsung was quite a bit sharper and also had a more natural look, whereas the iPhone's photo looked really washed out. Or in this 5x zoom photo of this church, which ended up looking noticeably more detailed on the Samsung. I also took a 25x shot of these construction workers to see which one will end up being higher res. And surprisingly, the iPhone was more zoomed in, although yes, the Samsung did end up being more detailed with less noise. And just as we were approaching the Royal Albert Dock, our destination, we stumbled across this statue, a perfect subject for a portrait shot, and here's the result. Better looking colors on the Samsung alongside a sharper image, however the iPhone separated the background from the subject better. Okay, so after roughly a 25-minute journey, we just arrived at the Royal Albert Dock, Liverpool, and just take a look at that view. That looks awesome. It is pretty windy, so you'll have to excuse my hair. Now, in terms of the battery life, the iPhone is at 79% and the Samsung is at 78%, so they're really, really close. So yeah, we'll take a few photos and let's see what this will do to their battery lives. This scenery was honestly breathtaking, so I definitely wanted to take my time and take a couple of extra photos here. I took this one at 5x, and once again, the iPhone looked a bit low res here, as if it wasn't using its 5x module, although I did check and it was. The Ferris wheel, also at 5x, was a bit better, but Samsung's 5x module is still superior as everything is less noisy, less processed, and higher res too. Oh, and this is where Samsung's secondary 3x module came in handy. So I took this photo of this boat, which was too close for 5x, but also too far away for 2x, so I had to use the 3x zoom. And just look at how much sharper Samsung's photo is, whereas Apple is simply using its 3x digital zoom here. And lastly, we stumbled across this diner bus, for which I use the ultra-wide modules. I do much prefer iPhone's brightness and colors here, although if you zoom into the wheel, for example, you'll see that Samsung's shot is sharper here too. Okay, so I've taken quite a few photos on both. This place is honestly awesome. We are pretty starving, so we're just gonna grab something to eat just now. There's a Rudy's right behind us, so I think we're probably gonna go there. And just a quick update on the batteries. The iPhone is at 74% and the Samsung is at 73%. So once again, they're only 1% apart. Right, so we're just about to order. I'm gonna get the Portobello pizza and also Rudy's homemade lemonade. Okay, so while we're waiting for our pizza, I'm just taking a look at the Galaxy AI summary of what we should visit in Liverpool on the other S24 Ultra. And from what it's telling me, I think we should go to the Beatles Museum next. Okay, so I was literally looking on Google Maps to see where the Beatles Story Museum is, and it turns out that it's literally right here. It's literally outside, like we don't even have to walk. So yeah, we'll have our pizzas and then we'll go and check out the museum. Right, so we just got our pizzas and take a look at this. So this is mine, this is the Portobello pizza. And this is Owen's, this is the pancetta with potatoes. And yeah, I mean, they both look pretty good, but do let us know which footage looks better. The pizza was absolutely delicious. Both myself and Owen have really enjoyed them. So if you're ever in Liverpool, I do highly recommend checking out Rudy's at the Royal Albert Dock. Now, because the Beatles Story Museum was just outside, we only had to exit Rudy's to arrive at our next destination. Right, so we're just inside the Beatles Story Museum right now, and I'm gonna take some shots, some videos, and we'll see how the battery lives compare after. Right now the Samsung is at 68%, and the iPhone is at 69%, so once again only a 1% difference. And this is where things started getting very interesting, because up until this point, both phones were basically neck and neck when it came to the battery life, with only a single percent separating them, and it was already 2:20 p.m. with plenty of juice left on both. So I wanted to take this opportunity and literally be a tourist. So I fully explored the Beatles Story Museum, and I took a ton of photos and videos of anything that caught my eye, which was basically everything. And I ended up with a pretty large collection of 100 plus photos and videos. I don't have the time to show you all of them, so here are some of my main takeaways. Unlike outdoors, indoors, and especially in lower light, the iPhone had significantly better colors. Like in this photo right here, the Samsung is really washed out. Same goes for this photo of the types of food that they used to serve at the Cavern Club, where the Beatles originally started. Look at the warmth and the vibrancy that you get from the iPhone's photo here. Or in this one, where the light perfectly merges into the color of the window on the iPhone's photo as opposed to being this bright bulb on the Samsung. Outside of the colors, I was also surprised by how big the difference was in terms of video, especially when we were inside the yellow submarine. I was switching between lenses in this one, and literally all across the board, the iPhone's footage was brighter, less noisy, and with more accurate colors too. You can especially see this when I zoomed into the depth gauge here. The selfies, however, were much better on the Samsung, with a much clearer image, more contrast in my face, and less noise too. And some photos were noticeably more in focus on the Samsung, and ended up being quite blurry on the iPhone. All in all, the Beatles Story Museum was an iconic experience. It was much longer than what I was initially expecting. We were there for more than an hour exploring and taking photos. And to some extent, it was also an emotional trip, seeing things such as John Lennon's sunglasses, or the police report from when he was shot dead. Not even to mention all the life memories scattered around the museum at various places. I will for sure be returning to this museum to take my time and properly experience everything that it's got to offer. Right, so I've just finished the Beatles Story Museum, and it was really, really good. It was far better than I expected. It was actually way longer than I expected. I thought it was going to be like a 15-minute tour, but it ended up being like a, 1 hour something tour. It was really good. I do want to come back again and just do a proper tour. But if you're ever in Liverpool, I would highly recommend you guys check this one out. Now, when it comes to the battery levels, the iPhone is at 43%, and the Samsung is at 46%. So the iPhone has actually dropped more than the Samsung this time, and we now have a bigger 3% difference between the two. And while I was taking all of these photos, I've noticed that the iPhone actually got quite hot, especially when recording videos, which the Samsung did not. So this could explain why the iPhone dropped its battery quite a bit faster than the Samsung here. I'm assuming it was just processing a bit more data than the Samsung. We then spent a couple of more minutes around the Royal Albert Dock and took a couple of stunning photos of the sun shining through the clouds. Right, so we've got roughly 1 hour left until we need to take the train back to Manchester. And according to this other S24 Ultra and Galaxy AI, we have one more place to go, which is Liverpool Cathedral. So let's head to it. Right, so the Uber is on its way. It's about 1 minute away from us. And once again, take a look at how much brighter the display on the iPhone is compared to the S24 Ultra, even though they're both set to their maximum brightness. The journey to Liverpool Cathedral was surprisingly a very short 10-minute one, during which I kept Uber open to track it and also the battery levels. Right, so we've just arrived at the Liverpool Cathedral. Just a quick update on the battery life after the Uber trip. So the iPhone is at 38%, while the Samsung is at 41%. So the Samsung is in the lead. As you probably know, the whole museum tour just killed the iPhone's battery much faster than Samsung's. Honestly, guys, I'm surprised by how massive this thing is. It kind of reminds me of the Sagrada Familia in Barcelona, but this thing is in Liverpool. I don't know, you wouldn't expect to find such a gigantic cathedral in Liverpool, but there you go. This is one of the biggest cathedrals I've ever seen. The time was now close to 4 p.m. and the cathedral was literally closing in a few minutes. But before going in, I just wanted to take some more shots from the outside and just admire the sheer size of the Liverpool Cathedral. These videos definitely don't do it justice, so let me take you inside so that you get a better feel. We only had a few minutes here, so I tried my best to admire what I later found out to be the largest cathedral in Britain. Okay, so this place is about to close, Liverpool Cathedral, but this place is massive. Like, this is one of the biggest cathedrals. It's even more impressive inside. I don't know if you guys can see this, but it's huge. It probably doesn't look as impressive on camera, but in person, it's just gigantic. I did take a couple of shots while I was there, and the Samsung was definitely more suited for these types of photos, thanks to its wider field of view on the main module and better processing of the stained glass windows. I did also take a couple of videos, although because of the size of the cathedral, I had to take them using the ultrawide module, and none of them were particularly great here. Both were very noisy, although the iPhone did have a considerably wider field of view in this case. And just like the Beatles Story Museum, Liverpool Cathedral is another one of those places that I'm definitely going to return to and explore in much more detail. Right, so the Liverpool Cathedral is now closed, and honestly, it was really, really impressive. Right, and just a quick update on the battery. So the iPhone, whoa, it's so windy here, but the iPhone is at 33%, while the Samsung is at 36%. Now we're gonna head back to the train station. If you see that tower over there, that's essentially where we have to go. The journey back to the train station was another 15 to 20 minute walk, and since we already knew which way we were heading, I didn't have to bring up Google Maps again. I did take some final photos along the way, but other than that, this was mostly a chilled, phone-free walk. Right, so we just got back to Liverpool Lime Street Station, which is where we have our train back to Manchester. And even though I haven't really used the phones, they were both sitting in my pockets, the iPhone actually dropped quite a few percentages. So it's now at 29%, whereas the Samsung is now at 35%. The time was now 4:30 p.m. and our train was about to leave in just about 20 minutes. So we made our way to the platform and waited for our train. Okay, so we're just on the way back to Manchester right now, and we have roughly 50 minutes-ish left. So just gonna play some games on both, do something that's a bit different than the movie that we watched before. And in terms of battery levels, the iPhone is at 28%, while the Samsung is at 32%. Yeah, I'm a bit surprised by how low they each are, but at the same time, we did film quite a lot at the Beatles Story Museum, so that would explain it. All right, so these are the games that I have on both. I was thinking of trying Crossy Road because that's probably the only game that I can play on both phones at the same time. So I started playing Crossy Road. I played the game on each phone individually until it died, while the other phone was running the game, and then I switched them around. And this is what I ended up doing for the next 50 minutes. Take a look at this, guys. 152 high score. Leave a comment if you ever managed to get further than this. Right, so we just got back to Manchester just now, and after maybe about 50 minutes of gaming and reaching a 152 high score in Crossy Road, the battery percentages have dropped quite significantly. So the iPhone is now at 11%, whereas the Samsung is now at 20%. Yes, the phones were both very close to dying, even more so in the case of the iPhone, with the Samsung having almost double the battery life. But we weren't done yet. We still had to get back to the office, so we exited the train station and got ourselves an Uber. The Uber trip was another 20-minute journey, and what I've noticed during it was that the Samsung started dropping percentages pretty quickly, to the point where the 9% difference became smaller and smaller. Right, so we just got back, and taking a look at the final battery readings, the iPhone is now at 8%, so it's almost dead, while the Samsung is at 13%. So there you go, a 5% difference. But you know what, since we're almost close to killing them, I might as well just go home, put a podcast on, and see how long they each take until they finally die. So I ended up leaving Casey Neistat's episode on the Diary of CEO to play until they each died, which, in the case of the iPhone, that was at 7:23 p.m. after 9 hours and 38 minutes, while the Samsung died at 8:13 p.m., lasting a total of 10 hours and 28 minutes, 50 minutes longer than the iPhone. And I am genuinely impressed. Like, I was pretty sure that the iPhone would last longer by a few minutes, as we did have that 1 to 2% difference initially, but for us to get a 50-minute difference at the end in favor of the S24 Ultra is definitely not something that I was expecting. Now, I should mention that even though my iPhone does have a 100% battery health, just like my Samsung, I have been using it since September, so the real battery health has definitely dropped, even if that drop is less than 1%. A brand new iPhone might give you slightly better results, although I wouldn't expect more than a few extra minutes. Definitely not the 50-minute difference that we saw here. Do leave us a like if you have enjoyed this video, that always helps, and if you'd like to see more in-depth tests and comparisons, then do consider subscribing as well. Hope you guys have enjoyed this one. I'm Daniel, this has been ZONEofTECH, and I'll see you guys in the next one. ZONEofTECH, signing out. Cheers.